Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Springbank 10. Okay, now Springbank 10, this is the introduction basically to Springbank. It's a standard release, bottled at 46% ABV, pretty much available everywhere. Now when you start getting into the rarer Springbanks like the single casks and 17s and 21s and all that, 19s, when you start getting to those, yeah, they are a lot harder to find. They are much more expensive. But the introductory 10 is, what, $60 roughly? So very inexpensive, and I think a really well-made single malt for that price point. Now, if you're new to single malt, let's say you're thinking about, buying a Springbank. It's probably why you're watching this video, the 10-year-old Springbank review. Just know that if you're familiar with Highland malts and let's say Speysides, or you're coming from, let's say, something like Macallan, and you're looking for a little more complexity, a little more depth of flavor, Springbank's a great way. It's a great stopping point, especially if you're looking for peat, if you're looking for that smokiness. I love Springbank because it's not quite the intense Isla peat that you're going to get over there. It's almost like a bridge to Isla. You're starting to get light peat, even in their Hazelburn, which the Hazelburn release from Springbank is supposed to be unpeated, because the way they do their distillation, apparently they do Hazelburn, then Springbank run, and then they'll do a Longrow run, and then they'll clean the still and they run a Hazelburn. But you never get all that peat out of the still, so even their Hazelburns have a very, very minuscule amount of peat smoke to them. Of course, Springbank's going to have a little bit more moderate level, and Longrows are going to be the really heavily peated. I still don't find Longrows as heavily peated as some of the Islas, okay, so keep that in mind. Alright, but back to this one. The reason I'm reviewing this one is because I started hearing through some friends about a lot of chatter coming from Europe about the 2021 release of the Springbank 10 and how great it was. So, of course, in the United States, especially here in Texas, we're always almost a year behind everybody else by the time we get the product on our shelves. So my buddy had been looking for this bottle for the last 6 months, 8 months, and it finally hit the shelves maybe about, now it's been about 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. But he finally got it. We, brought it out, we tasted it, and I thought to myself, yeah, really good Springbank 10, nothing extraordinary. It was good, but I didn't understand what the chatter was going on, why they were talking so much about it. Well, about 3 weeks later, he brings it back. We retaste it, and I'm blown away. Then I'm like, it really opened up. It dropped all this tropical fruit character coming out of the glass, and I was like, yeah, I need to find some of that. So that's what I did, and I have this bottle, which I shared with many a friend, but this bottle's been open ungassed because I wanted to see where it was going to go. This bottle is brand new, still sealed, exact same bottling code, bought at the same store. And so we're going to go ahead and open it up. Now, another reason why I'm doing this is because I hear a lot of talk about oxidation, or even just, never mind oxidation. Some people say that's not the right term, but the way a whiskey changes in the bottle once it's been open. Some people say it's not true. It just has to do with what you've eaten that day or how you're feeling at the time of your tasting. No, that's not what happens, because I've been doing this for 25, almost 30 years, and I've definitely seen spirits that change, and here we have a prime example. This bottle's been open probably about a month, and maybe a smidge over a month, and this one's, we're watching it get fresh cracked. Okay, so, and I'm going to review this one first, and we're going to see what the difference is. And it can't be what I've eaten, because even if I had eaten something, which I haven't, it would have been, they should be the same. Oh, nice. Better. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to the nosing on the first one. It's again, same bottle, but freshly open. There is a little bit of tropical fruit here. You are getting a little hint of a mango papaya element to it. A little bit of an unripe pineapple as well. Malt characteristic is definitely in here. There is almost a saltiness to the air here, a little bit of brine coming through. A little bit of a raw honey as well. Cinnamon is bumping a little bit. It's kind of like a, I don't know, what is that? Like a, let's see, an onion. There's almost a little bit of like a, kind of like a stewed celery. It's a little unusual in here. I actually think that's just the papaya. You know, papayas can be a little funky and a little weird sometimes, especially when they start getting just ripe to a little bit overripe. But there is almost a pepperish tone, like a white pepper in here. Yep. Really, really nice. All right. Let's check the one that's been open for a while. Oof. Much rounder. This one has more of a like a meatiness to the peat. This one's got a meaty smoke. The papaya, the mango, the pineapple feels a little more ripe here. The amount of brine is same in both of them. But this one, the smoke has developed a little bit of a meatiness that this one did not have. Yeah, this one doesn't have that. This one just has a little bit of a peat smoke, but no meatiness. It's that black pepper, no, not black pepper. This one's white pepper, and when you get that in there, it almost hints at like a jerky element, so it hints at a meatiness, but it's not there. It's definitely there. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this one first. Here we go on the taste. Yeah, it's really solid. That's a solid Springbank 10. Whoa. As a matter of fact, this one enters a little more traditional, how I expect a Springbank 10 to enter. And then it gets a little bit, right here in the mid palate, you get this intense kind of cinnamon swell. And right as soon as it starts to crest, then you start picking up the tropical fruit. It's a little bit light, but you do pick up that unripe pineapple, the papaya, the mango. That is all in there. Viscosity level, medium, almost medium high. Big maltiness just pouring out of the glass. The peat, when you start picking that up on the back end, very nice, and it's almost meaty, but it's still pretty clean on the peat smoke. The brine kind of mixes in with the fruitiness. The tropical fruits are there. They're not really intense. But you almost pick up a little more pear in this one. And that brine with the pear. It almost hints, it almost brings back a memory, almost like a salted caramel on an apple. It kind of has that characteristic. But the apple is tucked underneath the tropical fruit. That little bit of white pepper and cinnamon really kind of made themselves present right there on that mid palate before it started getting into the peat. Really, really nicely done there. Alright, so now I'm going to do a little touch of a rinse. And we're going to check this one. Make sure I coat that glass nicely. Oh my goodness. Sweetness is intensified. Maltiness rolling in with the fruits. This has really come together, I'm telling you. As great as this one is, fresh, it just feels a little more segmented. Like you're picking up, you know, the sweet malt and the big malt character right up front. You're picking up the spices on that mid palate. Then you're starting to pick up the tropical fruit and the peat. And then when you get it to breathe and this bottle to open up, it just melds to a beautiful Springbank. Now, is this a on-profile Springbank? That I will say probably not. As a matter of fact, the 2019 was definitely more on profile. So in other words, what you expect Springbank to give you, 2019 does it. And you still see those out there. Again, when you're checking codes, the first one will be the 19. This one is a little off profile because of the amount of tropical fruit that's pouring on that back end. But is it enjoyable? Very much so. Do I see why people were really kind of talking about it and going after this bottle? Yes, because of the tropical element. You don't usually find that, especially on a, you know, $60 single malt. I describe this one as round. It's rich and round. Sweet malt blossoming into spices, blossoming into big tropical fruit. Everything feeling very ripe and rich here. The pineapple feels ripe, everything. Mango, papaya. Almost a little hint of guava now coming out of this one. Peat kind of whispers in, like you almost don't even notice it coming in, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's a good amount of peat. The peat does have a little meatiness to it. Matter of fact, it even gets a little bit of ash, a little cigar ash on the very back end. Overall, again, juicy, rich, and round here. Over here, let me go back to it just to double check. That same little light rinse. Still really good. But yeah, it's a little more intense up front. Feels a little more punchy. And while you do get everything, the ash actually jumps in ahead early. On the mid palate, you get this ashiness to it. The peat hasn't developed the meatiness yet. Yeah, the tropical fruits are in there, but they're just kind of, I don't know, it just feels a little tight, a little muddy. So could you add some drops of water to this to help that release early? Probably. More than likely, what I would do is pour a glass, put a nice glass topper on it, and let it sit for 10-15 minutes, and then I'd come back to it, and hopefully it'd be closer to this. But the thing to note, again, with Springbank, and this one in particular, just get it past this shoulder, and then let it sit for a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll really get a lot better. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video review. Keep leaving all those great comments. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them. Of course, my patrons are going to get this video 2 weeks early. So if you want to get that head start on hunting bottles like this, join me over at patreon.com/LiquorHound. Become a patron. That helps me stay independent and able to source bottles like this to do reviews. But yeah, we're doing a lot of extra content over there. So thank y'all as always for being here with me on YouTube or Patreon. Everyone have a great day, and cheers.